I think the Euros showed. I mean, we said before the Euros that we didn't think they were really ready to win it. You know, when we previewed it, we said, okay, this comes maybe a little bit early for this team that we really loved at the time and were on that great run that they continued for a bit. But we said, okay, maybe the World Cup 2022 will be where the maturity and they arrive and they're amongst the favourite. They won the Euros as a cup team. Like the team that you didn't really expect, that grew and grew and grew, got a bit lucky, semi-final, final, penalties each time, blah, blah, blah. They win it. But maybe they're still developing so much that although they should have qualified, they're just not ready yet for, to be in that thing. I don't know. I can't work it out why it is.
Let me ask you this, because this is one of the big debates about the sort of how you see football trending, and bearing in mind that, Deschamps, of course, won the World Cup playing a certain way.
Yeah.
One of the things Mancini got praised for is that since arriving there, he kind of turned like 100 years of history on his head. And he said, no. Winning football is about having the ball. It's about demanding the ball. It's about pressing high. It's about being courageous and taking risks. And that is something that Italian football historically has never done.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that really cost Italian football for a long time, because you get away with it when you have outstanding defenders and outstanding strikers who only need one chance, but you're not going to have that all the time. Now, and in that sense, I think Italy for the approach, and it's not just Mancini, it's all the coaches that aren't, many of the younger coaches in Serie A, the way they play. It's much more attacking, much more risk-taking. Now there's inevitably going to be a backlash with people saying, but before, when we were more conservative and more defensive, we would qualify for things. Just kind of nonsense, because Ventura didn't qualify last time around, but still. Given that France definitely belong in the conservative defending counter camp, where do you stand? Is there some merit to it? Or is it something you can get away with if you're Deschamps because you've got Mbappe? But
yeah, I expect Deschamps to change a bit, to be fair. It's an interesting one. I mean, I guess you do what you have to win, whatever that is, but it's also fitted to the qualities of your players, right? So when Mancini and Italy were playing really expensive attacking football, pressing high, it's also because they felt, and they did, to be fair, had the player for that. I think it's as much
I'd argue they still do. They still have the midfielders for it. They still have the strikers for it, in terms of strikers willing to run around and expend injury and whatever,
the intensity, for sure. I think it's as much as that, then the mindset of your coach who said, like, you know what, I can have those incredibly talented technical players. I'm still going to play on the counter, but it's more tricky. But
it worked for France.
And
Gareth Southgate thought it was going to work for England.
Deschamps had a bit of both, to be fair. And I think he chose what he was most comfortable with. And now we see a bit of an evolution where he's thinking a bit more like, okay, we're going to slightly play differently. It's a good question. I don't want Mancini to go, to start with. I know he said last night after the game, it's going to be difficult now. It's not the time to think about my future. I don't want him to go because I still think that as you said, they're going to the right direction. I don't think there's much needed to change to make it work again.
Just wait for better players.
Yeah, but I think collectively, you could almost make up for the lack of, like you said, match winner that you can have in terms of talent, individual talent. I just think it's such a huge shame, and I also think that you grow as a player and as a team when you go to World Cups. I know Italy, before not qualifying for the last two, had two terrible World Cup after 2006 where you didn't even went through the group stages. In 10 and 14. I'm not here to bring back memories, but, so it's been a while now that you've been, you and World Cups hasn't worked out. But I do think that you grow as a player by going through those experiences, whether they're good or bad. And I think it's a real shame for a big generation not to be able to. And we go back to Donnarumma and Verratti and players like that. Jorginho will probably never play in a World Cup now. Which is for him, whether you like him or not, whether you think he's good or not, it's a real shame that you play for Italy and not even make to the World Cup once.
Yeah, no, I'm very much on board with that. It's funny, those stats, right? Like, when people bring this up, Italy didn't win a game in 2010, so you can't. It's such a dumb way to look at it, whether for positive or for negative, right? I can come back and say, oh, look, since 2002, Italy have lost I think it's 2 World Cup games, and one of them was the one when Suarez was biting people. You know what I mean? Like, because they weren't there, and that's going to hold until 2026. So, I think you have to look at trends over time, and you have to look at the performances in between at the Euros. I think there are still some structural problems. One of the big ones, and this is something the federation's complained about, is that what clubs in Italy are doing, not just in Italy, but it's especially marked in Italy, is the equivalent of the under-21 side or under-23 side at each club. There's a developmental team, right? They're packing it full with, they're taking 18-year-olds from other countries. And so it's a classic bottleneck issue, right? Which they've talked about in England and so on. Yeah. I've always been on the side that, like, if you're talking about national team success, you have to be really, really good. And so, you know, if I'm a super promising young player at Manchester City, let's say, just because they bring in 6 foreign dudes when I'm 18, if I'm of the caliber to make a difference at the national team level, that's actually just going to make me better if those guys are good. Yeah. But what's your take on it?
I don't know.
Because in France, you don't have that problem. Because in France, what happens is very convenient because you produce so many players, then they all get bought and they all go abroad. And they free up spots for more young talent to go through.
Is there a problem with academies in Italian clubs?
I mean,
is
look.
there a problem with your formation, the way you form players, young players?
The players are definitely coming through. But the argument is more should come through and more should be ready to play at a younger age, because when they reach that we call it the Primavera level, the under-21 level, those teams are filled with foreign players, with young foreign players. You get cheaply. A lot of times there's some agent speculation or whatever, and so the guys don't get minutes. I think
you know, something that England have changed. For example, with Brexit, there's a new rule: you can't sign as many young French 15-year-old or 16-year-old like Gaël Kakuta to bring to your English clubs. I think this is something that you have to look into, though. To be fair,
but so first of all, there's legal issues there. What I want to point out about England, though, is that this great generation of young English players, and I think we can both agree, they produce a ton of talent. All these guys came through when that rule wasn't there.
True.
All these guys came through when English academies were filled with foreign players.
True, but they put the emphasis on we need to do better at bringing through those young.
Everybody puts emphasis on. But what I'm saying is those young players, they faced much tougher competition to get playing time at youth level, and I think the result is Saka and Foden and all these guys today.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't quite know that. If we. There's no foreigners, that we're just playing amongst ourselves all the time, because then you get the guy who thinks he's a superstar and he's playing against the Muppet Show.
That's true.
So it can, I think it can work. It can work both ways.
Yeah, it is. But there's, I think, like you said, Italy are going into the right direction with Mancini, but there's still a lot of work to be done to make sure that this disaster doesn't happen again. It can't happen again. And just think about the losses that it is for your federation, for your league, in terms of sponsorship money that would have come in terms of TV rights that would have come in for that World Cup, for your federation, for all the money that could have gone back to grassroots football, all of that. This is a disaster.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.